Hello. I wanted to make a video since I haven't made one in a while, and I thought it'd be good to kind of get in the habit of making videos for my YouTube channel, since I do plan on making more in the future. I just thought, instead of planning, I'll just start making them. And also because, like, I was thinking, I was just watching some videos earlier on YouTube about people, mainly men. You see a lot of videos, men, I guess from the UK and the US, talking about their life, and I don't know, there's a lot of frustration out there and a lot of kind of doom and gloom, but also it's, people kind of like expressing themselves, like getting it off their chest, which is stuff like, the problems with modern society, right? All the stuff that people hate about modern society, such as, and I've gone over it on my channel loads of times, which is to say kind of feminism in the UK, mass immigration, crappy economy, I guess, all that stuff. Those are the fundamentals. And it got me thinking, like, I just saw a bunch of comments like that got me thinking, how do you solve this problem? How do people get out of this problem? How do you get out of this problem? Because I have these same issues that these guys talk about. I have loads of problems now at the moment. I've said it in a previous video. I'm living with my parents. I lost my job early last year. Totally unfair. I'm not going to go into it now. And I'm sort of just kind of rebuilding from scratch, but I'm extremely frustrated with things. At least not at the moment, but in the mornings and in the evenings, I get really frustrated. Or I get this sense of, like, I don't know, anger. This morning I got really furious. Just woke up, like, thinking about the BS and the stuff that led to my dismissal. It's like a lot of latent rage came out, and it keeps coming out every now and then. Either just when I'm going to bed or just when I'm waking up, and it sucks. But at the same time, it's a sort of purge, isn't it? You kind of getting off your chest the frustration, and not giving I don't care who hears, you don't care about anything else other than just getting off your chest. But it kind of led me to do a bit of what, that kind of like anger makes you want to get out of bed and do stuff. So it makes you get out of bed much earlier, gets you active, and that's the thing, like, taking action is a good thing, right? And that brings up the question, like, how can you take action to defeat, like, the system that we live in? And there's already lots of good comments out there from people, men, mainly men, white men, basically white straight guys. You see lots of good comments about, like, how things have changed. And one of the big problems, I think, is the lack of privacy. Like, I'm in London, and obviously I live at home with my parents, so I have no privacy at all. And I've rarely had any privacy, in fact. Like, it's really important, I think, to have your own space where no one can bother you. So you have your own space, but you hear a lot on YouTube, like, men just want peace, and that's it's not peace, it's privacy. It's your own space, so you get to see friends and other people when you decide, and you get to have your own space when you decide. And just being alone in your house and not having anyone bother you, and not being under pressure to do something, not having some outside pressure to do something when you're in your house, makes you in control, right? It makes you a sovereign individual, and it's what people want, and that is lacking today. That is totally lacking. You know, you get all these videos on YouTube, people talking about like, oh, my job, it's horrible. I mean, I'm working non-stop, and I'm thinking, what is it all for? Because I'm just paying bills, and I'm getting nowhere in life, and I just don't enjoy it anymore. And I'm thinking, what is it? Yeah, what am I doing? Well, I think it's that. I think it's the lack of control, like lack of privacy, lack of control over your own time. You're just a slave, and that's how I felt. That's probably partially what got me sacked from my job. Not that I did anything wrong, just, you know, it wasn't sacking, it was a constructive dismissal, but I had my own sense of self, right? I felt that I could say what my true opinion was without being criticized, and I was wrong about that, but I did nothing wrong. And that is the lack of control, the lack of being a sovereign individual. And then that kind of frustration makes me kind of push for it, even if it might not be the best time to do it, or the most I don't know, it's just a thing. I sense I get that there's a lack of privacy in today's society. You can't just have your own space. It's just really hard to have, because it's difficult to buy a house, because all the prices of housing has gone up, especially in the city. If you want to go out and like just, you know, be by yourself for a while, it's very difficult to do. Like if you want to, at least if you live with other people, you can't do that because you're in a house, so you can't, like, you feel restricted in that sense. You just by virtue of having other people around. Or if you want to, you know, go by yourself somewhere, go for a walk in the city, you can't do it. Every corner you turn, there's someone there. You just can't do it. And I think it's especially prevalent in the UK because it's an island. It's a small country. And that's another point about immigration. I think is also an invasion of privacy. It's not just like a demographic invasion of foreign peoples, you know, coming in and competing for resources. It's also an invasion of privacy, because this is a country belonging to a particular society who have their interests, who have ethnic interests, and that has been completely undermined by bringing in a bunch of people who have different interests and different goals, you know, and therefore they're going to want to intrude on your, you know, sovereignty, because they want different things by definition. So that's why you have countries, so you can separate the societies, and so there's a degree of benevolence towards each other. It's not just like in theory, not a completely cutthroat society. It's like you do have a society where people supposedly would be pro-social and not want to kill each other and not want to spy on each other every 5 minutes, you know. But with multiculturalism and all that completely, all that, like, it creates that low trust society that people talk about. So in your job, you can't talk about, you know, how no one in London speaks English anymore. You can't say that if you're surrounded by people who come from outside of Europe. When I say immigration, I especially mean a non-European immigration, because that's really like an outsiders coming into your society and pushing for different things. So yeah, and you can't talk about it when you're surrounded by people who have immigrated to your country. Oh, no one in this country speaks English anymore. You can't say that unless you're around people who agree with you, and people who agree with you would be people who belong in the country. So it by definition takes away from your freedom. And so if you get a nice job, you know, that's completely undermined if your manager is from Timbuktu, because like you have to, you know, censor yourself to make sure that you survive in that role. So it completely destroys your freedom, and that's the fundamental problem with it, is the whole society has been undermined. And I read a comment on YouTube earlier about someone saying, you know, in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up, it was the 80s and 90s, you know, that we had much more privacy. And I think that is what's the fundamental thing that's missing is the privacy aspect, the ability to, go to work and be free to think your own thoughts and express yourself, relatively openly without having to censor yourself and just have no ability to think for yourself and form your own opinions and freely express them. You can't do that anymore. So that's what I think. Like, how do you take down the system that enforces it when millions of people have already come into the country? The government's full of them. Feminism and all the rest, of course. Like, you have women who are, like, if you ever worked in the civil service or any government job, it's basically mostly women, and mostly, I guess, email jobs and meetings. So emails and meetings is what they do all day, basically, from what I saw. It's like email here, email there, and then like 3-4 meetings during the day, and then that's the end of the day. That's what I saw when I was working in the civil service. It's just, this is what, like, these are the people who benefit the most, because they have basically cushy jobs and they're living off the public purse, and all they do is like talk. That's their job, to talk. And I just don't think, I just think it's nonsense, and it's like, so how do you bring all that down? I was thinking, well, this is another idea I got when I was looking at a comment on YouTube. You get some authoritarian government to reverse the demographic change and reverse all the social engineering stuff with DEI recruitment and girl boss feminism and all that stuff that has completely destroyed the corporate sector. If you ever want to get like a nice white collar job, at least if you're a white male, right, white straight male, if you want to change all that, then you have to somehow get an authoritarian government in place when everything's stacked against you, and it's just not going to happen. So how do you do it? The only way I can see is to withdraw your tax take. Your withdraw the government's tax take, your contribution to the tax take, and withdraw your labour when you can. And how do you do that? Well, you have to find a way to to basically avoid tax as much as possible, and to have enough money to be able to withdraw your labour. And that's what I'm thinking about, which is why I'm doing stuff like my caravan here, so maybe I can take off for a while and live frugally for as long as possible before needing to get back to work. Another thing is trying to run your own business if possible. That's definitely a way to that's why governments hate businesses, small businesses and entrepreneurs. They don't like them because you're a bit more in control of your life. You can avoid tax, and you can pay yourself an adequate, you're a master of your own destiny, as long as it works. And so I think a lot of it is about guys who feel the most disenfranchised by the system finding a way to extract themselves from that system as much as possible, becoming much less dependent on the system, and being able to withdraw at will and just use it whenever you need to benefit yourself. So if you need to make money, then do that. And if you can use that money to invest in something that you think you believe in, then do that. If you can find a way to build a business with your money that you've earned, then do that. But always, with a view to making yourself more in control of your life, which would have to be geared towards more, self-employment, entrepreneurial type of a career than going on the traditional type career that you might get in civil service or in some corporate job somewhere. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I think crypto is probably going to play a big part in getting men to withdraw their labor from the economy and force change somehow. It has to be organized to an extent. I don't know how it's going to happen, but those are my ideas. It has to be some sort of movement where men withdraw their labor and just become a nuisance to the government, because I think that men are needed, and the more men are dissatisfied and abused by the system, the more this kind of idea will take hold, I hope. So yeah, that's what I got for the video, and I hope you like it. Do give me a comment if you watched it all the way to the end, and all the rest. Thanks for watching.